Today, we are reviewing the Superior e-bike. We have a full 29er alloy frame powered by a Bosch motor. It's laps on laps on laps. Let's get into it. BikesOnline provided us this bike for us to add to our e-bike series to bring to you all, and it was a great addition to the series. It was a super fun bike to ride, and this bike is a great option for folks on a budget. Folks who want an e-bike with great travel, components, and has a powerful motor. The battery on this bike never dies. First impressions, let's start off. The bike performed really well. It has 160 mil of travel, front and rear, so it's your all-around trail enduro bike, as I'd like to call it. It is a heavy bike though. It comes in at about 55 pounds. The cockpit wasn't the best. The geo on this bike was a little wonky, nevertheless comfortable. I found it performed way better on descents than climbs. Like I said, the high-power Bosch motor lasted forever, which was absolutely amazing. I'll get into it in a little bit more. So some of the pros and cons of this bike. First off, Bosch motor. Right off the bat, that's one of the best motors you can find on the market right now. It was comfortable despite the weight of it. I didn't feel any issues on the descents. I actually felt really stable and confident on the descents. It retails right now for $3,900 on BikesOnline's website. And the build kit that comes with this is really great. You've got some good components right off the bat, some RockShox components on there, Shimano drivetrain. Also, it comes with the Schwalbe tires. Again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Someone please correct me if I'm saying that wrong. But those are some really good tires. I had those on the transition and also really liked it. If you want to watch that review, click on the card right up here. Some of the cons that I found on the bike is that there is no small frame option. So I demoed the medium, which is the bike that's sitting right here next to me, and it was all right. The reach was a little long, but I felt stable on it. I'll go into that in a little bit as well for you all to know how it felt climbing and descending. The weight of it was also really heavy. It was about 55 pounds or so. And for most women, I think especially shorter women, and I'm speaking generally here, may find this really heavy just to lift on and off the bike rack. I have a quad rack on my car, and I tried lifting that on and off, and at times I did need help because the rear part of the bike is actually really heavy. The cockpit comes with a really flat bar, so it wasn't the most comfortable going up. I also found it a little odd that in a medium frame, the handlebars came at a 740 mil width. It wasn't the most comfortable, but then again, that's something you can always change and custom to yourself later down the line. Also, I wasn't a huge fan of the saddle that it came with, but again, that's just another customization that you can do. And we'll go into that in a little bit as well. So let's talk about on the trail, how this bike did climbing. Initially, I was a little bit worried climbing on a full power e-bike due to the weight and the powerful motor that it has, but it was fun. It was fun to put the bike to its full boost and not worry about going over roots and rocks as I'm in the most powerful setting on the motor. It rolled over everything really easily and I didn't find any issues with it. It wasn't the most comfortable climbing though for long periods of time because of the cockpit. It has a really narrow and low rise bar, which I just found a little wonky. The stack also is a little bit higher, so I was sitting really like kind of high up on the bike and it just wasn't my favorite. But with that said, it rolled over everything with ease and I didn't have any issues there at all.
It's a tiny bit of a punchy climb here. You can hear the motor.
Descending on this bike was surprisingly fun and comfortable. The longer wheelbase made me feel really confident and stable on the descents, and I did roll over anything with ease, no issues there whatsoever.
Yeah, super rut. Super rut. You. Gonna go super fast, just in case I run over a snake, like I did the last time I was here.
Despite the low rise bars, I felt more comfortable on the descents than climbing on this bike. Sometimes if you're gonna do something really steep and slack, you want a bar that has a little bit of a deeper rise just for extra support, but this wasn't really an issue. It just felt a little weird, like I was saying earlier. It was a little wonky, but again, something you can customize and change. The full 29er gave me a lot of confidence in corners and tight switchbacks. Again, not an issue given most of the bikes we've been demoing have been mullets. I'm still a huge fan of the 29er for that super amazing stability that it gives. By my final ride on this bike, which was actually yesterday, I had a lot of fun on it. I was really comfortable with it. The weight kept me centered and grounded. I knew how to position my body. Again, the only wonky thing was the cockpit and the reach because it was a medium frame. Currently, BikesOnline have it on sale for about $3,900. And for that price point, this build really offers great value, especially with some of the components that it comes with. And you can justify spending that much money on a bike, $3,900. Yes, it's a lot of money, but for our sport, that really isn't, which is unfortunate. Because if you spend that much money on the bike, you can afford a couple hundred bucks to swap out the cockpit, the stem, and the saddle if that's what you want to do. Right. So for the geometry in this bike, this is a full 29 front and rear bike, 160 mil of travel front and rear, alloy, heavy, full powered e-bike with a Bosch motor. The geometry felt a little bit different for me than the other bikes that I have demoed. And the bike felt big. Because it's a medium frame, the reach was actually really long. So not a huge fan of that. And I also felt a little bit higher up on the bike when I was riding, even though there wasn't a higher rise, which is interesting. It just didn't feel super comfy climbing, like I was saying earlier, or for long stretches on flat road. It just wasn't super comfy. The standover was okay on the medium frame. I don't have a point of reference for what the standover height is. That isn't something that is listed on BikesOnline's website in their geo chart, but it didn't feel as high as like the Transition, for example, but it was okay. I mean, it's not a bike that I would have any issues getting on and off because I always just step off to the side when I'm getting on and off the bike. I don't usually rely on the standover. The build kit for this bike is actually really good. You've got RockShox fork in front and rear. You've got Shimano SLX Diore drivetrain, hope I'm pronouncing that one correctly, with a 10 by 51 tooth cassette and a 34 tooth 1 by chainring. It comes with Shimano brakes as well, which, you know, I actually really enjoyed. I purposely did some technical descents yesterday, really slow and controlled, and I really liked it. Like, I have never really ridden Shimano brakes before. Worked really well, really well. It also has DT Swiss wheel set with some Schwalbe tires. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. The trail tires on this bike are really, really good. Again, no issues with it in the Southern California trails. Things were a little bit drier, so the tires perform really well and grippy. No issues on that whatsoever. And lastly, in terms of components, the handlebars and the saddle were not my favorite, but again, as I've been saying, this is something that's easily changeable that you can do for like $3.50 or so, depending on what you go with. Let's talk about the motor and the controls that you get with this bike. This bike is powered by the Bosch CX motor with 600 watt of peak power and 85 Newton meters of torque. It's incredibly powerful, and there are 4 modes on this bike that really stand out. When riding, I mainly use the midsection, which is like the blue color or the green. There's like a light blue, you're gonna see it on the screen right now, the different modes that you can get. The red is like the turbo boost. I rarely use that one. Honestly, I was a little scared to use it, but I did use it when I was just lazy and I didn't really want to pedal after I'd been doing laps on laps on laps on that thing. But you do have the option to fully boost it if you want to, and it felt powerful. It felt, honestly, really powerful. You can control the modes on the cockpit as well, up and down for whatever mode you want, whether it's eco, the mid, or the turbo. It's easily ergonomically done on the handlebars. And lastly, it has a walk feature, which is really cool because when you run out of juice on this thing, you don't want to have to walk this thing. It's really heavy, so I felt great that the walk feature on this works really well. So overall, the Superior bike was actually pretty comfortable despite the reach and the cockpit issues that I had. It was really comfortable on the descents, not so comfortable with the current setup and on the long climbs. I was a little disappointed also that this bike does not come in a small frame, so it really limits shorter riders when they want to find an e-bike that is within their price point with great components. One thing you could do is see if you could demo it out and then see how the reach feels for you, because that just, for me, it just was not comfortable at 5'4.5". Even though it was big, it did feel really stable for me, especially on the descents. I had a blast going down some technical stuff with this bike. I had a blast catching some speed on it because I love that stability of the longer wheelbase. And lastly, the build kit has really great components on it, and couple that with this Bosch motor and the price tag, it really makes it a great option for folks wanting an all-round bike that just doesn't break the bank. So if you're looking for an e-bike that has great travel, good components, an amazing motor, and you're not worried about the weight or the cockpit setup, you should check out the Superior e-bike from BikesOnline. Let us know what you think. Be sure to subscribe, like, leave us a comment, and tell us if you ever even heard of Superior. What do you guys think of this bike or the brand itself? We looking forward to your feedback. Have a great rest of your day. See you on the next one.